going on, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going to talk about two skills that are super important in mountain biking, but we really don't talk about them a whole lot, and that's getting going and stopping. So, I mean, pedaling and braking. Now, I know that these two things seem super easy and meaningless to practice, but as you progress your skills, being able to modulate your brakes in really steep situation or technical situations, and being able to create power on the pedals out of corners, out of rock gardens before jumps is really important when it comes to progressing your skills and riding harder terrain. Now, to make this easier, guys, we're going to break this down into two sections. Our first section, we're going to talk about pedaling, and our second section, we're going to talk about braking. So let's get started with some pedaling. Now, have you ever seen your friend or maybe yourself pedaling for a jump or out of a corner and they just kind of look stiff on the bike and the bike isn't moving and they're not really creating a lot of power? And maybe it looks like this. Now, these riders look like this and aren't putting down any power because they're relying heavily and solely on their weight driving the pedal down to create the power to the wheel. And some might even say creating watts, but we're not on road bikes and we're not worrying about that. So we're just going to call it putting power to the pedal. Now, to put the power to the pedal, we need to incorporate our upper body in the driving force that's pushing downwards on the pedal, which is our foot. Now, how do we do that? We're going to use a side-to-side bike movement that's going to allow us to actually put more power into the pedal by pulling back kind of on the handlebar as we're pushing down. And we're going to be able to create more tension on the pedal. So we're going to make this super simple. First things first, guys, just get on your bike, right? Grab the handlebars, kind of spread your feet apart, but I want your feet to be even. Don't space them out like they're level pedals. Right now, we're kind of mimicking having one pedal down and one pedal up. So if we start with a bike lean to the left, I want to raise my left foot. Now, this would be me leaning the bike to the left and putting all my weight on that right pedal. Now, as I go to the other side, I'm going to drop the foot and pick up the other foot, right? So as I lean the bike to the right, I pick the right foot up, standing on the left. And back and forth, and back and forth, and back and forth. Everyone got that? Good. Now, while you were doing that, you did the next step without even knowing it. As you're pulling the bike up, you're actually pulling it with the outside arm, and pulling it with the outside arm, and pulling it with the outside arm. So on the pull stroke up, right, as you're pulling that bike up, that's when you're pushing down into the pedal. And that pulling and pushing at the same time allows us to generate more power to the pedal. As I said before, this stand-up style of pedaling can be useful in a lot of situations, especially when you have a mellow grade uphill that you're really trying to put the power down to go up it fast. And so it's super convenient that while learning this, it's easier to practice and learn the movements on an uphill, a very slight uphill. Because if you're on a downhill or flat, as things get faster, you have to do them faster. So maybe it's harder to get in a rhythm. A nice steady incline allows you to put the power down and accentuate these body bike movements without really picking up speed. Once you get them down, then you can work into doing sprints. So if you go kind of coast into the uphill and put it into a gear that takes a little power to push, you can lean the bike, pull. Lean the bike, pull. Lean, pull to the other side. Lean, pull to the other side. As you're learning these body bike movements, the pushing, the pulling, the one side to the other, it's okay if your body position isn't perfect, your upper body. Just try to make sure you're keeping your weight centered over top of the bike and centered over top of the tire contact points. As the bike's moving, you're not leaning with the bike. You want to stay centered as the bike moves underneath of you. Now, once you started to get the hang of this and you actually kind of feel that rhythm from side to side, side to side, and that weight transfer is helping you put power and you're pulling back on the handlebar, and that's also helping you create power. Now, when you want to go faster, you're going to have to perform these side to side pushing and pulling a lot faster as well, and with right timing. So if you mess up, just stop and start again. It's not a big deal. Quick tip about gearing, everybody, before we try to put down some power and go fast. You want to make sure you're in a more difficult gear, because if you start to try to put power down to the pedals and there's no resistance, you're just going to be wasting energy and flapping around. So if you start in a very hard gear, it might be harder to get started, but in the end, your top speed could be greater without shifting through this process. You can shift through this process, but you have to make sure you let off of the power while your derailleur is making that shift over. As you're changing gear and that chain is shifting, it's actually kind of bending slightly and torquing while it's shifting from cog to cog. And that's when chain brake. So we're going to coast into this uphill, and then we're going to try to put down the power and go faster. If you're really in an easy gear, right, and you're going to shift gears, you have to let off the power as you shift on that one stroke and just wait for it to change. All right, guys, last tip about putting power down to the pedals. And it's about where you're keeping your weight. As we're riding downhill, we're always keeping our weight in our feet and our weight off of our hands. This is essentially the same thing. We're just transferring our weight from one foot to the other, and we're pulling back on the handlebar. If you're putting weight in your arms, you're not going to be able to pull back on the handlebar. You're basically going to be just running really fast and not being able to push down into the pedal. This is really bad. All right, guys, that's going to do it for our section on putting power to the pedals. Now, as you master this movement going uphill, it's going to be so much easier to take it to downhills because you're already going to be used to the movements, and picking up speed while you're doing them won't be so scary. Now, if you enjoyed this, please make sure to let me know in the comments, and always make sure to like, share, subscribe, and we're going to see you in the next episode. Please make sure to become a paid Patreon, guys. The winter's coming. It's hard for me to survive. Views go down. We'd love for the channel to survive another winter and get back to next summer. So until that time, guys, we'll see you later.